Okay, cool. All right, I think we're going live as we talk. Good morning, everyone. I'm gonna double check that it's live everywhere.
This is like my routine. Just click go live and we go from there. And there's no
Dude,
prior preparation here.
no, why
Send the
would there
link
be?
and go live.
All right, I see it live on
Yep, we're good.
Twitter. E-
I see it on Twitter.
X is on YouTube too. See?
That's what I'm trying to find next. So that way, just in case I can't see chat, I can at least
Yep.
have access
Yeah, I
to it.
see it. Cool.
Perfect.
So we're here again for another AMA. That's the point of these. Of course, we're happy to do these as much as we can. Scheduling is always tough. I think we've already got our buddy Troy from Radio Web 3 is going to do the next one. I'm not sure the date yet, but we want to definitely do these regularly. It's like perfect for us because oftentimes we maybe don't have the um, as much time to get in and answer every single question in Discord, especially because it goes so fast. But always want to be close to the community and answer any questions. So this one, of course, Doughboy, if you don't know him, longtime supporter and streamer. Doughboy, I mean, you're in the real horse racing industry, right? You were one of the first people we met, I think, that at the very beginning that was a Zed player and um, really in the industry itself. You know, you were like doing claims yourself and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
obviously, it's been it's been 3 years now. It's been a long time. It feels like two plus at least. Um,
Yeah.
so
Apologies for the
anyway,
extracurricular noise coming out of the side of my head here. They decided to do road work and pipe work on every road surrounding my house. So
yeah, I know how that is right now.
7:30 a.m. Beep beep beep. Now I'm dealing with it in the back alley with the truck. But yeah, it's been it's been a fun ride.
Yeah.
Been here for I think right after Mint, Zook and myself had you on our stream on the old Pony Plug stream, and we did a Q&A there. And the game
Hmm.
wasn't even developed. Well, game was developed, but
Yeah,
there was no beta.
in progress.
It was
Uh-huh.
almost 5 6 months before beta was even close to going live. So I
Yeah,
wish I could go back and find those old streams because there was I'm a big fan of
yeah,
asking hard questions and trying to dig answers out, but we did pretty good on those, and yeah,
yeah.
it was fun. But yeah, I have tons of IRL experience. It's been a while since I've been in a stable. I'm hoping to get back. I think my pops is picking up his trainer's license again, so maybe next year that all changes. But
Nice. Wow.
yeah, horse racing is it's in my blood. We'll say it's in the veins. And
But yeah,
Paul,
so the point of these,
meeting
of
you.
course, is obviously I think you've probably been getting questions. You've got questions of your own, community feeding them to you. But the hope with these is like, we're trying to be as open book as possible,
Yeah,
and so I'm assuming you have a library of things you want to ask, and we can just discuss past, present, future, and open book.
I
Yeah.
got some.
No.
See, the thing is when you put a thread out there asking for AMA, it turns into a woe is me instead. So instead of getting questions, we get a lot of concerns instead. So I have questions set aside that I
Concerns are
saw.
fine. Yeah,
Some
too. But
I'm
yeah.
some of them are more so they're gripes more than questions. So I'm just gonna pass over those. But I kind of want to start from the beginning because now it seems like again for me because I've been here since season zero and beta. I'm not a huge stable. I never have been. I started the game when I went live with one horse. Um,
Well, how many do you have now?
I think there's like 60 in there, but maybe five that run. It's we're in tough times. We're in the Wild West right now.
Well, 1 to 60 is still like,
Yeah,
pretty
it
great.
took a while. I got my first. I think I got my first breeding mare in season 10, and went from there. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's yeah we're getting for those that have been here. This year has been a lot of stepping stones, it seems. And, we were waiting. I obviously was waiting for a lot of news around the wagering aspect of the game because that's something that I cover, um, onboarding and all that such. But my first thing when you start with the game is basically, and one of the concerns is how do you? Let me see if I can phrase this. I'm not an English major, so deal with me here.
Yeah, it's fine.
What is the goal for onboarding and retaining players and keeping them around. Because at this point in the game, it is a very hard game to learn and pick up. And we have new players come in, pick it up, lose, leave, and
Yeah.
don't come back because that was their experience. It's not an easy game to learn. It's not plug and play like some of the other games were. Um, but basically it's going to be a couple things in. Is there a is there a strategy for when the app is fully functional to have a tutorial step by step, like before you even go into the deposit, it takes you through setting up your stable. You complete that, setting up this, learning this, knowing your, your left, right, dirt, turf.
Right.
Basically, a beginner tutorial for stepping into the game instead of how it is now. Unfortunately, it's not unfortunate, but this is where we are. Again, there's a lot going on. Just jumping in Discord, asking a question, 10 different people berate you, and then you got to take, you got to take a piece of the web, each part of the web. But
Berate you. Oh, I mean, our community is nicer than that, but
no,
yes,
yeah. Yeah, I
no,
use adjectives and verbs a lot different than most people do.
yeah.
So, but
I
yeah,
think it's a no, it's a great question. So, I mean, to sum up, I mean, really, yeah. What's the plan for onboarding new users? I mean, that's like priority zero for me. It has been for months now. It's the whole reason we did the mobile app. It's the whole reason we're building the Roku. All these things is to basically open up the funnel. And I think to step back a little bit, you know, it's kind of a cheat code what crypto and what Solana sort of allowed us to do. And the majority of the time when you build a game, and this is at least all the other games that we built before, you end up with this like months of work on the onboarding part, the you know tutorial, the step by step, and then you end up A/B testing that a bunch. You're running all kinds of different experiments to see which one works and which one doesn't. And and then you're sort of like, if we can get people in the funnel, we can get them down into day one to day two to day three. Now we're going to start getting them to sort of play the later metagame, and get them graduating through all of the things, slowly working their way forward. But with crypto, and with Solana, you've got this sort of audience that is hungry for the late game, and they will go through any steps required to get into that late metagame. And so Photo Finish Live is the ultimate late metagame. It is like, it lasts forever. It's evergreen. It takes months and often upwards of years to see the progress that you want. I mean, I can't think of very many games that are as rich and deep in terms of the late metagame. It just has like so much kind of infinite play at the end of the user journey. But what we were able to do is just like, if you think about a mobile game, a normal mobile game, it gets 100,000 installs, and 3% of those users typically end up spenders. The rest don't spend or they lapse. So you end up with 3,000 users that are basically your hardcore community. Like, we just like surgically just put those 3,000 in at the bottom. And so we didn't have to have the 97,000 that came through and didn't play. And that was shocking, to kind of see how that's how it works in crypto, is that there's these people that are sort of like already into finance, they're already into the hardcore, they're already into the strategy, and here they come, and now they're stuck down at the bottom. That's great. So how do you add more people? Yeah. So you have to kind of, in my opinion, you've got to go back through that sort of law of averages. You do have to get people through the funnel, but at some level, we're sort of slowly stepping up. So to your first question, we are adding basically the trainer series. I don't want to call it 2.0, 1.1, 1.3, whatever we can say, but like getting that to where it is actually meaningful and fun to play by itself. And the Paul's baby, one of Paul's babies. The trainer series now is like meant to, sort of teach you how the game works without any stakes, without any, loss. And we all know that we just threw that in like literally like a week before the game launched. It was like, oh my God, we got to have something. We got to throw something in there. And it's just not good enough. And so what we have coming up, and it's actually like in QA right now, is this sort of idea of like kind of a checklist process to move your way through the training part of the game. You have to win a trainer race in order to get, try and get a real horse, and then trying to get people shepherded into trying to learn how to borrow a horse or claim one. Like all those are steps on this journey that we're trying to teach people how to do it. And then being also like pretty forgiving. Like, so when they start up, having Derby that they can use instead of having to deposit in order to try it. Those are the types of things that we're looking at. But I still think at some level, like, so if you think about Photo Finish, the original, 15 million downloads and 150,000 people spent. It's like a very small, this huge funnel at the top, and then like down at the bottom is this really small section of people. So if I think about right now, we got this core that we've already built. So number one, we can re-engage a lot of the people that we've lost, and we're working on some of that stuff too. So say like deposit matches, things to get people back in, basically, rejuvenating the people we've lost. So we've got this core right now that's like diamond hand; they're never leaving anywhere. And we lost the people, like you said, that maybe they tried it, they bought a horse, and then they lost. So we're trying to re-engage those people. So bring that like a little bit larger, maybe 1,000 to 3,000 or 3,000 to 5,000 users. And then it's like, well, can we find? Does anyone not believe that we can't find 50,000 users, 100,000 users in the whole world that like the game as it is with basically barely any changes? I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that we can't. It's just like we've got to do it, and we haven't really been spending on marketing, and that's what's about to start. It's like we're just all hoping that all of our friends tell our friends that the game is awesome, and I think we kind of getting close to exhausted that. It's like everyone has sort of like told their networks, and everyone has shown who they know, and so now it's just about paid marketing, and it's weird in crypto. Everyone sort of doesn't even think of that as an option. We're sort of like, why aren't we, on some influencer thing, or why aren't we doing this? And it's like, well, the way that games grow is you pay for advertising, and so that's really the plan. Is number one, to all long answer there, we're adding more, and it'll be out pretty soon. Onboarding things to make it a lot more friendly. There's like lore and story to work your way through the trainer series, and I could even show some screenshots in the Discord and stuff of what that looks like. It's just kind of a checklist. It's like, here's some things you need to learn to do, and it's all no stakes. Like, you're not having to spend any money to do it. So that's kind of step one, and then step two is just get more people in the funnel. Bring them in from paid advertising and all that stuff. And then I guess the step three is a lot of what we've been working on with Ted Gay from Churchill is around the sort of re-engagement, some of the mastery that he's helped us bring on, which is any user that's lapsed. Those are obviously a great person. They tried it and they left. How do we bring them back in? A lot of that is just like what you see on sports betting apps. It's the live ops that happens all the time. I mean, I'm sure you get it, Doughboy, as well. Like $10 free at Aqueduct today, and $100 this. It's just this constant live ops, right? So that's the
They
other.
love when you don't deposit, so they can send you a nice deposit bonus. They like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's actually pretty simple. I mean, it's like I hate to dumb it down because it's a lot of work that it's like infrastructure wise that we've had to be building to get to this stuff. But realistically, I don't think it's that crazy, and I'm confident, confident as always, that we can scale it up just like that, slow and steady. We don't have to have a million users. That's the thing about photo finish. It's like 10,000 users would be a massive change to the current metrics, and I mean that seems so feasible when we start actually advertising. So anyway, so that's the question. Hopefully
There's an
that
answer in
answers it.
there for another one. Someone had asked about the updates to free to play trainer series and expected release, but I think you grouped it all in there as part of
Yeah, I
the.
mean, there's a lot that I would like to do with that, and we've actually done a bit of prototyping around like making that experience almost like arcade, like very simple, so that we could have, the original photo finish player base, the 15 million people, like maybe try out the whip the horse thing and then fall their way. They sort of stumble into the PFL, but that's a pretty tricky one to do from a design standpoint, because it's two separate games. I mean, it's two separate audiences, and so I don't want to like necessarily trick a user when they install it. They're like, "Oh, this game's awesome," and then like, "Okay, congratulations! Now you can't play that game anymore. You have to put real money in and go watch the horse." It's just sort of a weird change. Um, but what we are doing, I guess, is sort of a tease of alpha. Is like we are getting the old photo finish is getting back on the app store. I think we're going to rename it just to not confuse people, but and then basically we're going to use that almost exclusively as a feeder ad campaign into the other. So like anytime you make meaningful progress in the old one, in that old game, you would hit like, oh, I'm out of energy, or I finished this map, I'm done. Like right then we'll be cross promo and pushing them to like, hey, you want to try and play for real money? So it becomes kind of almost like a free ad. And those games used to get 5, 10, 20, 30,000 downloads every single month. So yeah.
It's worth mentioning too that one of the things that we've thought about is like, a lot of players who came into Photo Finish Live early were HRM players, and that was such an advantage because conceptually they were familiar with things like stars and preference and grades and radials and all that stuff that gets talked about in the Discord. And for a new user that doesn't have any familiarity, the hurdle's just that much higher. So any game that we could make that sort of introduces some of those little concepts would help prime the pump, make it easier to onboard.
And that's another one, just to remember. I was going to go check real quick, and you can we can ask something else. But basically, Horse Racing Manager, similarly, we're going to start running ads inside of Horse Racing Manager to push people into PFL, because I was shocked the other day we were looking at it. Horse Racing Manager still gets a bunch of downloads every month. And so it's like, we're just trying our best to start advertising this game. And that's really where we're at. We had to do a lot to get sort of ready. And there's still a lot more to do, but it's no longer, I think we reached the saturation point of like pretty much everyone in Solana knows about us. And everyone that plays the game has told their friends about it. So now it's like, we got to actually spend money and go market externally. We don't have to spend money too. We've just got to market a lot more externally.
That was another. Obviously, the marketing. There's a couple of questions on that, but one is, do you plan to market? Which obviously you just discussed what you were going to. As far as you just brought up HRM being active, and with advertising and whatnot, do you plan on advertising through other apps? Like when I'm there's another app I play. It's like a questing game, whatever, but randomly through you get a it's like a loot box. Watch this 90-second ad and get a loot box kind of deal, and then it's an ad for another game. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, I could definitely see PFL like having a 90 or 60 90-second clip in the middle of this where, all right, you're clearly a player playing on an app already. Here's another app. Click the screen, download tutorial and go through there. But yeah, I guess for marketing, is there any?
That's exactly how we would do it. So there's basically our top two sort of channels. The first one is likely going to be Apple search ads, so that anyone that searches on their phone for horse or horse racing or horse game or any of that, that will be number one. And then second is running ads through a platform like it's either Unity ads or through Meta that will just start showing up as people are playing their games. And so we messed around a little bit. Like you can make those playable. I'm sure as you're playing other games, you see those that they're not just a video. You can actually play something. You move it's a fake level of Candy Crush, or it's a fake thing where you pull the pin out and the whatever, all those like little fake. So you can make the little fake playables and do those too. That one's a weird one because we're like, what do we do? Like what mini game do we make that feels like we're not going to trick the user? You can do that. We could make a game that's just like some sort of crazy, like launch a horse into space and then, people would click it and they'd love it, but then they get there and they're like, what the hell? So you have to try and find something that's like still kind of fun in a bite size, like, 3-second, 10-second gameplay loop, but then is representative enough that they're like, oh, okay, well, it's not that game, but it's close. So, yeah, we've prototyped and messed around with that a little bit. So who knows where we end up there yet? Not sure.
In addition to the market push, what outside of the app, like I just brought up, what other forms of marketing? Like we had a little clip in the Daily Racing Forum. I remember that a few months ago. But anything that you can, leak, let us know where do you plan to see it essentially.
Yeah, I mean, we always that's the thing. We're kind of down to experiment and try everywhere and everything, whether it's with a crypto exchange or whether it's with real life partnerships. We're still talking through 2 IRL tracks are, on the docket that we're trying to figure out what's the best deal terms and all of that. So that's what I would say I'd leak. Those may not happen, but maybe we come up with something. But it's always really just try and test. I mean, that's the thing. No one knows. Like those Daily Racing Forum ones, like, they didn't do anything. Like no one clicked and no one installed. But the Kentucky Derby ones, we were doing every month. We were pushing stuff through their channels, and the emails did pretty good. But like the TikTok and the Instagram didn't do anything. No installs. And then we even had stuff in the Derby program at Churchill, and no installs came from that. So there's like. And then when that happens, you sit back and you're like, well, shit, is it just not going to happen for that media? or was our ad not good enough? You know, it's really difficult to then you got to go, oh, shit, we got to try it again. You know, we got to go see if is there, you know, was just the visual wrong? Was it not, you know, catchy enough? And so it's just a lot of experimentation, and I think that's hopefully what people realize is like, I mean, the Apple, you know, app has been out for months, and like we've run multiple campaigns, and we're just trying to find what people like and what they click on. So it's like this stuff just does not happen overnight, and
Yeah.
it's always tough. Like, when is marketing starting? It's like it has started and it's been running, but we're not going to go spend 250 grand on a campaign before we know it works. You know, that's like that's the
Yeah.
part that's frustrating. When the patience level in crypto, of course, is low, but also I totally understand on the same time. It's like we're a little behind the curve. You know, like photo finish is sagging a little. The crown price isn't hurting or isn't helping, and so you know it's very urgent for us to like make sure that this gets spun up. But like people think that we're not doing anything. I mean, we're doing a ton of stuff constantly. So it's just
Obviously,
yeah,
it's stuff that we can't see, and that's all. It's always
yeah.
question, and hope for an answer. But like, you guys don't really owe an answer to anyone, and I feel like that's something that people really forget in life is nobody owes anyone anything. So you can ask. If I don't answer, you oh well, you know what I mean. Move on about your day. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, like I thought that the daily racing form QR code would
Hmm.
work for the players that were sitting at the computer and that could just click and have the tab open. But if I'm at a racetrack, and this is just me, like, and
Nah,
I see a QR code, yeah, I'm not there for a QR code. I'm there to study the racing form. So like, it's gonna be tough for me to take my phone out, snap the picture, and then now I'm taking
yeah.
time away from studying the program, which is why I came. So like, it's tough, with that.
Yeah,
But
we did that in the old game too. We even tried to run ads at the track and found those to be pretty bad.
yeah,
It's like at some level you think like, well, there's all this time between each race. There's a lot of downtime while you're there, but everyone that's there is in their mode of like that time is made for handicapping. Like that's what they're, you know, they're not there to like, well, let me learn a new product.
yep,
You know, they're
yep.
not really there to do that. They're there to handicap during that moment to get into the next, get to the window in time. So yeah, I think digital is definitely much better.
I mean, over the years, we've tried a lot of different way. I mean, we've made a television ad that ran on ESPN, and we've tried all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So you know,
Hmm.
we
Yeah, I mean,
we're open to tries.
having the race, having them use the actual footage from the game was a pretty good advertisement. It, I think I think when I watched it the first time, I don't remember them referencing PFL. Like, oh, this is the clip from Photo Finish Live, and then the
Hmm.
QR code in the bottom corner would have been nice. But those things cost money. I understand. TV time and screen time is very
I think the
important.
second Derby, the Derby 149, that we did do that.
Yeah, you got that
But
in. But
All right.
yeah.
the,
Mhm.
Let me see. I got something for. I want to get something for Paul.
I was going to ask. I'll show someone. Is the team secure on funding and financial resources?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, we are good to go. Good question. Um, you know, we maintain a basically break even, so that the game can pay our salaries, and then also we put all the, of course, the fees back into the ecosystem. All the fees are going back into the purses and the free rolls and all of that. So, but yeah, we're good. So no, don't worry about that. I will. I've said this before. Like this game can last forever, and it should. Like even if it ran with one person. Now I don't want it to, but it can run forever. So someone has to work on it, I guess. But it can run. It has evergreen ability.
Let me get one for Paul real quick. And I mean, this isn't. Paul, do you have any ideas, any new ideas for Fleet Figures or the schedule, going forward? I I can go on about Fleet Figures, but that's just I'd rather have a one-on-one stream with you so we could focus an hour on me questioning Fleet Figures and why I pop an 89 in a four horse, 400 claimer and can't do the same thing in a stakes race against better. I know why, but I want to understand why my horse can run an 81 in a four horse field in a 400 claimer, but can't do the same. Again, I know the competition level. I know how it works for the most part. Newer players see that and they say, "Oh wow, I ran an 81. Let me go right into a graded stakes now with my S minus," and then they're obviously severely disappointed. Um,
yeah, it's it's you're always going to have to run the horse in various conditions to really understand what it can do. I mean, because it behaves differently, like you say. And so, you can find a spot where it does very well, but there doesn't necessarily translate. I mean, just like if you were to take it to different turf surface or a different distance, different types of races, different competition levels, they'll all play in to that race math. And as far as the schedule, we're continuing to just iteratively grind. I mean, it's going to be a long, steady process. I wouldn't expect any like big bang moments. Hopefully we just see season on season improvement. It gets better and better and better.
I'll ask one to you, Paul, just about schedule, which is like we put this in, and I didn't know what your thoughts if you were going to use it or not, which is the spillover. And so for people in the audience, like the way Horse Racing Manager worked is once a race filled, let's say we put a race up, it's a 10 horse race. As soon as 10 horses joined, it would clone itself and make a copy of it right at the exact same time and run right then. And so you never had this notion of like, oh, I just missed it, I didn't make the race. Like anyone that wanted to enter that race, it would always like scale itself horizontally, I suppose, to keep cloning, and there would always be enough of that race type. And so I thought like there is a world in which the schedule operates this way, where it's just like it kind of scales on demand of that race type, and you would get a lot more flexibility. But what are your thoughts on that, Paul? And why haven't we put it in? And what's the sort of
it just has gotten caught up. It's there. Yeah. I mean, it's just in the backlog. I mean, I don't know. I had thought about bringing it back along with some of the like simulation type stuff, but it's just, I mean, we're busy. It's just sitting there waiting for its moment.
So no, like real specific, just haven't quite. I mean,
no, I don't have any super problem with it. I mean, I think it can solve the problem of like, well, there's an advantage to running in the follow-on, or there's an advantage to running the first one, right? Like it sort of levels that, which is great. But it also gives a little less control to some of the race availability, like to the extent that we'd like racing to be sort of a progression that we guide. If everything's always available to everyone, then there's no limits on capacity for certain types of races, which we got Oracle in there now, which is sort of softening that limitation anyway. So, but I just haven't gotten to finding the right spot for that one yet.
Do you feel that the schedule is stretched too far wide and could possibly be condensed a little bit? Meaning, like, there's
fewer races.
This goes back to the new player thing too. Like, you come in, there's so many different race options, and there's so many different things to learn between the allowance weights, stake races, this.
Yeah, and we've got sort of like 3 international systems all in there. We got the handicaps and benchmarks and claims. Yeah, there probably is some consolidation, but we're looking at the usage, and we're looking at is there and actually Bryce has communicated some of the races have been getting clipped in various places, different types at different times in the season. But the one that I kind of am most skeptical of, if I'll put this out there, are the undercard benchmark driven races on the major days. Those are the ones that I'm kind of like, they seem a little gameable. We haven't done anything about it yet, but that's the one spot where we might make changes immediately. I don't know, in the short term, I guess I'd say.
Okay, like that.
Yeah, I think to that question, Doughboy, like I haven't pushed hard on it because I don't know the answer, and it's such a drastic change. But like I'm not going to say that this is how it should go, but like I could almost foresee a world where if the spillover style of racing is what was more pervasive or more prevalent, that you just add very few races, just enough to cover. And then when 200 horses enter the left dirt 8 furlong, you could then go chop those into 20 10-horse fields that are actually balanced, just like a kind of the way a steward or whatever would say, well, you guys are in this one, you guys are in this one, you guys are in this one. But the biggest. So then it's like there's much fewer races on the schedule. It's much easier, just like, oh, left dirt, yeah, go to the left dirt one, sure. There's not worry about allowance. Like the steward could do the allowances, as he cut them out. He could add the weight later. This hypothetical being, but there's a big risk of, like, in my eyes, like, does that really take a lot of skill out? And then people are like, shit, you're matchmaking for me. Like, I wanted to be, choosing stakes. I don't want you to do this automatic matchmaking. But there's a world that could happen, even if it's maybe only a certain race type, or something to, like, get some of that craziness out. Like, oh, I gotta go figure out what was my last 3 benchmark and this, and how much weight do I get added, and that. So it would take some skill out, but it would also take some complexity out. And so maybe there's certain range that works, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm torn.
I think with that idea, it's similar to the IRL. So like, there'll be a race in the book, the condition book, and it'll get 24 entrants. And instead of just running a 12-horse race, they'll split it into 3 8-horse fields, so that way it runs.
Yep.
They cut it at a certain point. Obviously, IRL is different. We're not paying an entry fee, so I personally want a 12-horse field because I want to try and get max value when I'm entering. I don't want to enter a 6-horse field or have my race split into a 6-horse field. So I think with the game, it's a little bit, I want to get max basically. So if I had the option to run a 12-horse field or a 6-horse field, 6-horse field might be a little lighter, but if it splits into a 12 from 24, I think that's fine. I don't know how that would work on your end. Like you said, having it open and then having the entries, and say you get 24 entrants into that race by the time it closes, and then the system just randomly distributes 12, 12, 12. I think that
Yeah.
would be cool. But
Yeah, I mean, and that's how it works. And that's the thing. It's in the game, and it can run, but we just haven't put it on any races yet, because it is sort of a big change, I guess. And even though it might not be, it just, maybe we only do one race and we just try it. We could do it that way, but I think it definitely, it basically makes it solves quite a few problems too. Of, like, let's say you are in a selection committee and you wait 14 hours to find out that you didn't make it. That's a huge drag. Oh man, I could have been racing this whole time. So now that fixes that entirely. Now it's like all the horses race no matter what. It also helps some balancing. It's like, if you happen to put in, and here comes 7 people dropping their super stud S pluses, well, they'll race against each other, maybe, or maybe you'll get more weight. You'll have a little bit more of some handicapping actually applied to your horse, but then that takes skill out a little bit at some level. So
And
I don't
there's,
know.
I mean, one other little chink there is the economics, right? So to the extent that you want higher grade horses to run for bigger purses and have higher entry fees, if you sort of, if you don't do grade restriction on that, if it's just one big pool for everyone and you're sort of divvying them up, then that could sort of not play out economically the way that people want.
Yeah, true.
Okay. I'm gonna stay on
Anyway.
I'm gonna stay on the schedule-ish idea. Well, we'll stay on that. This is a question from out there. It's they want to know about grade restricted racing. First, you guys were going to gradually do away with it. Then people in the community expressed concerns, so it was brought back. Is grade restricted stuff here to stay? Am I, breeding for the best grade horse, or should I be shooting for the top of the grade? Sorry, should I be shooting for the top of the grade or the best horse overall?
I think
more so.
I think at this point it's here to stay. But I'll tell you what the intent would be, at least from my perspective, would be that it should always make sense to try to move up a grade. So that the ROI and economics of say an A plus, like if you had a maxed A plus racer, there should be a very strong incentive for you to try to move up to S minus. Even though you can win at A plus, it should be more lucrative to try at S minus. So we don't want to create static bands where people just play in there and they don't want to move up. And so we're trying to structure entry fees and payouts, juice purses, etc., in a way that would make it more attractive to be a good S minus than to be a good A plus.
Okay, and then another one with that. Now this is going to get into the more so how it's at right now. With you want your A plus, you want to be able to move up. Is there any concern that we're losing orange and green ticket about like not we're the let me try and phrase this again. Over the past few months, the B plus, A minus, A class has disappeared. Races aren't filling, and if they are, they're 4 horse fields, and most of the time it's from either two stables putting two each in, or it's 3-1 split. How do we keep B plus, A minus, A floating and competitive and entertaining for people? Right now, it's just why am I going to spend $50 to breed an A minus when I can spend $50 to breed an S? And that's going to come in another question about the scaling stud fees essentially, but that'll be the next part.
I would say, I mean, that to me is a function of supply and demand as much as it is the grade. It's the fact that there's not enough users to play in those. So, like, if there's only a certain amount of users and the horse population has swelled so large, well, of course, the bottom is no longer interesting for the people that are playing. It's like if you added 5,000 users, then they'd be like, all right, oh yeah, cool. B is fun. A is fun. You get, but like right now, the audience is like, there has been this sort of like super hardcore, tight knit group of people that have been here for a long time that an A or B isn't all that interesting because they're racing and they're pushing up into S plus and SS minus and stuff. So um, I think I don't know if it's a problem with the game or the schedule or anything as much as it is just the user count. I mean, again, if you had 10,000 people coming in that had low budgets and they're new to the game, it'd be just like it is with the top level. I think maybe I'm wrong, Paul. I don't know what you think about that.
No, I think that's true. And I also think that, if you have the choice between a worse horse and a better horse, you're generally going to choose the better horse. I mean, we, I kind of have had an internal expectation that breeding is going to get harder and the population is going to squish up towards the ceiling. And at that point, grade might cease to mean as much as it does now because your most horses are operating within a very narrow grade band. But we'll see how that plays out. I mean, we don't control the breeding, we don't control what pairings people make, we don't control the marketplace, what deals get made, what sales get made. So that's just like my own internal sort of expectation. But I've been wrong before.
Yeah, and then just the part that I added on with this, are you considering putting in place a sliding scale for breeding based on grade? Um,
I'm
Obviously,
not right now. No.
based on what I said, B's, A minus, and like non-existent. No one's breeding there. But also, why would I spend $50 to breed with an A when I can spend 50 to breed with an
Yeah.
S? Kind of deal.
Yeah. To me, I kind of I've expressed before. I don't really have a lot of interest in setting individual price points within the breeding market. But also, I think Ian's right. I mean, if we suddenly had an ad campaign that brought in a ton of users, you're not going to get the high level studs at floor price anymore, and suddenly there's going to be like space at the bottom for the lower grades to move. So it's just, to me, it's
Yeah, it's kind of an
market stuff.
artificial. Yeah, that's I guess from a top level, Paul is always really good at this of like sometimes we'll want to go fix an issue like this specifically, like an economic thing, and he's just always like let the market play itself out. And it like you can force the market to do something, but it will always like fall over somewhere else. It's just plugging different holes that will cause it to spill into something else. So if you just say like, no, the market is the market, and our goal is to get a more robust market rather than like try and force people into these little small financial changes. I think it's typically going to be better that way, and let the market, the water find its level on that stuff.
Okay. I'm gonna stick with breeding here with the next one. This is a community. I guess this has been in the community feedback for a while, but this is on breeding reports. Um, with the arbitrary amount of breeding reports not being sufficient for a lot of stables, is there a possibility that the number of breed reports will be put back to a ratio of per mare, i.e., 3 per mare, 4 per mare? A per mare ratio seems to make most sense for players since they can fit any stable size. Is Yeah, that last part didn't matter, but basically the breeding report is yeah, I'm reading off the script here. I'm not good with
Reading
off
off the teleprompter. No,
yeah,
no, yeah, we
I'm
get
not
it.
good.
Yeah.
I'm freestyle. Let's go with that. But
I
this
mean,
one, I'm trying to. I'm like I said, I was trying to start from the beginning and then go through the game. But yeah,
Yeah.
do you guys have anything set for the adjustments on breed reports, or it is what it is now?
it is what it is now for now. I mean, I don't think there's a ton of free breed report inventory going out every season. I mean, a ton. I mean, the number of simulated breeds is a massive number. I've done the math before on what the maximum cap is. The number of stables that are hitting the cap right now are very few, and I don't think I was talking with Ian about this the other day. We never envisioned that the gameplay, the fundamental gameplay of this game would be run a breeding report before you breed. Like that was a premium option. It wasn't like the standard mode. And if we grow the game, most people will not be able to get free breeding reports because there's a limited supply of memberships unless we change how that's done. But so I think 100 a stable is enough for now.
So comment on the side. Boo.
I
Directed
know there was
strictly
issues.
at Paul. Boo.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I mean, give you the boo sound, but we're not on there right now.
I mean, we always know that the any change that is restricting will be unpopular. Like any change that is going to cost money where it wasn't before is unpopular. It just had run away from us. It had entirely run away from us prior, and so it felt drastic that we had to get it back to some sort of normalcy. I definitely hear that idea of like, okay, scale it to the type if you're an exec, but as of this moment, yeah, not changing it. But we shall continue make exec great again. That's from Sudbury. We shall continue to listen to your feedback, and I'll give you Paul's direct email. You guys can post directly to him.
I'm sure they would love that. You can ask Bryce how that goes.
It can go in the pile of the other 7,147 unreads.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. They listen. Again, you can. I'll ask the questions. Whether or not you like the answer is on you. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's your fault.
Any plans to consider review change the 35 cover limit, horse death age, aging curve? All right, bro.
Those are good ones.
I have to let my dog out. Answer that one while I let
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry about this.
Yeah, that's a good one. So obviously, in the beginning of the game, we just set some of these variables in place. That was 3 years ago, and we haven't changed them. So 35 covers was actually a math thing, if I remember right, to try and sort of match how much they could do in real life, in a given time frame. And then age 25 was, I think, picked out of a hat. It was sort of like a maximum. There's quite a few people, Paul, in the community that would kill for us to change it to much lower. Because they're basically saying, a single stud just continues to dominate and do that kind of a thing. Is this an example of the market should do the market things, or do you think we should look at this would be something we'd have to telegraph like way in advance. We'd have to be like, okay, foals born today might die at 18 or something, right? Foals born in 2 seasons might die at 18. But what do you think?
I think the 25-year age was driven by an in real life court. That's that's about how long a horse could go. So that's what we chose for that. 35 actually seemed like a very tight limit based on real life.
Yeah.
I mean,
300 or 400.
Tappet does a bit more than 35 a year, I think. But we were. There's a push and a pull here, which is that the economic value of a high value stud is somewhat driven by how many covers they can sell in a season. And you say, well, they could charge a higher price. Yeah, but that'll price people out. So there's some like elasticity there, right? So what is the right number? I don't know, but 35 isn't that much compared to real life. And so to the extent that we're trying to model that, it seems very, very conservative. I think
because I remember that. Like I was just looking at TAP, it was 250 plus or something, in a year, and
Yeah.
so, but the big difference is that the progeny bloodlines are much richer of a tapestry than if they were in 1900. I suppose, if that's what we think about this game, or this game is starting in 1826 or something.
I mean,
So
the breeding
that's
population
why
is
I
also
thought
much
35 is
smaller in
fine.
our game, right? I mean,
Right.
we don't have as
No.
many, but we're building up to it. I mean, so
Yeah, it's going pretty quick. It's like I don't know when
35
we'll be at
becomes
the.
less and less all the time, relative to the number of breeds that can happen.
Yeah,
For the top
like how
studs, and I
many?
think it's the breeding world is kind of a winner take all thing. I mean, if you're Tappet, you make a lot of money, and if you're Joe
Yeah,
Schmo, you
not
don't make
Tappet.
nothing. Yeah, you don't. That's kind of how it's built.
I'm asking GPT, how many generations are there in modern horse racing bloodlines? Wonder how many
I feel like they stop
grandparents?
at some point.
10 to 15. So, we're not that far away from that. We're at what, like probably five, four-ish to
What
five.
was 15? I'm sorry.
Total number of generations, like grandparents moving
Oh,
through modern horse racing, right? Like, they
well,
live,
we're in season 22, and
but
they couldn't
not a
breed
baby
until
each year.
season 3.
But they don't. A generation wouldn't count each year typically, right? It's going to be like every 3 or 4, in essence, right? Like they can't breed with a year younger than them
No, yeah, right,
all the time.
yeah. I think it's just offset
But
by a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, so established in the 18th century, the Godolphin Arabian, 1600s, 1700s. Yeah, I don't know. So
I mean, the
regardless,
argument. So when I hear people say, see if I understand this right, when they argue for reducing the count of breeds per stud, they're basically saying take breeds away from the top studs and give them to studs that are not the top studs. That's basically what it's about, right? So it's a rice. It's who's push me pull you. So I mean,
yeah.
You'll find no argument from me about that. I do think 35 is a bit much. Did you guys cover the death age and whatnot? I know it's always a topic.
Yeah, we were just saying like it was rather arbitrary average, and like why is it a problem if it's not a problem in real life? It's like it's sort of a marketing thing, but if we did want to change it, which I wouldn't like hate, it's not like I feel very strongly about making it between 18 to 25 or something. Like that feels like something we really need to telegraph way in advance. Like it would have to be something like, all right, the generation or season 25 foals are now going to be born with this new death gene that can be.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that, honestly, because we're
Yeah,
2 months away from extinction on Gen Zeros, right?
I know, and that's we're already preparing. We got to prepare for that because like there's quite a few things we haven't tested yet. Like we're pretty shocked of like this is going to creep up on us. Like oh shit, now what do we do? They're actually dying. We did some exploratory stuff early of like statues for them when they die and all these other NFTs, and the market has changed so wildly since then. But
yeah, and I mean we obviously all things being equal, we like horses to be worth a lot of money, and so the having 25 cuts at 35 full sellouts is a really rich prize. And what we haven't seen that yet, because right now the early studs are getting usurped by the younger studs, right? Like I don't think there's many Gen Zeros that you'd pay big premiums for at this point, or Gen 2s. Well, Gen Zeros might be a little special, but Gen 2s, something like that's old, they're not the beasts they once were on a relative basis, just because now we're into SS minus. And so
Honestly,
I'm sorry, say that again.
it depends who you ask about that.
Well, okay, yeah, there's some theory there, but I just think when the rate of increase in the quality of horses slows, right? Because when you had a B minus and you could cross it with an S plus, it's a guaranteed big jump. When you've got an SS minus that you're crossing with an S plus, or an SS minus that you're crossing with an SS minus, now your chances of moving up significantly are limited. So if you did catch a lucky break in a horse, and really got a nice one. You know, in the future, I think the chances to fill that card 25 times and really, like we saw some of those early breakthroughs do. I mean, they made a lot of money. I mean, Exoticas and Prime Time, and I mean, they made a lot of breeding money,
Yeah.
which that justifies spending for breeding. It justifies spending on sales. Trying to catch that. So 35 and 25, are those the right numbers? I don't know, but I do like there to be a big chance, big win chance if you get it right.
I'm going to throw a question on that from earlier that I'd
There was some in the chat. Yeah, there was a couple in there I was looking at.
Yeah. So why should a track staker profit more than the second place finisher who is risking money? So this is basically a rake question. I mean, again, we continue, as I said before, we continue to experiment with this. Obviously, these are things that we did at the beginning. They worked well. Maybe they don't scale, maybe they do, but that's what profit boosted races are, right? There's a lot of races with rake changes, and there's all kinds of things that we always experiment with. So we're not set in stone on a lot of these things. It's always a living, breathing organism. So I don't think that it's just a push and pull, like making sure racing is rewarded. We're trying to continue to get more and more juice onto the racing from external sources, whether that's the meme coins or whether that's simulcast and these other things that are coming, to try and not have to, hurt crown yield, because crown obviously helps for everyone too. That's a big boom for the ecosystem to keep crown juicy and having a strong yield. So it's push and pull. I think people ask these individual, like small, tight question about that one thing. Well, it's just this huge ecosystem we're trying to balance. We want all of it to do well. And, I know that if there's no racing, there's no crown. And if I know how all that works, but it's just a balance. So we're always experimenting. I mean, you can kind of see that some races don't have any. There's like zero crown, rake, right? We're just working towards all of it, man. Like it's hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it.
But I think if there's one thing, and you tell me if you agree with this, if there's one expectation that they could solidly have, our community, is that changes around that kind of thing are going to be very incremental and gradual. We're not going to upset the apple cart. We're not going to send crown to zero. We're not going to kill racing. We're going to try and just kind of like ease our way towards new local maxima. But it's going to take a long time.
Yep. Agreed.
What's our time? Are we hard out at 11?
Yeah, we have a meeting at 11. If we could, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let me see because I want to. Obviously, I'm gonna hammer you with wagering questions.
Yeah,
because that's what I'm gonna do. Let me see.
Question about Gonsler. Sorry, man, you should have sold.
There's some people in chat. Obviously, chat. If you have questions, throw them up. If we discussed it already, we're gonna skip it. But I'm gonna move on to the wagering part because I feel like we're right around the corner from simulcast hitting the streets. I've noticed some of the races have been segmented, with times. I think on my stream we've started doing that as well with a little bit of time between. And I did ask last week, and I did have Bryce in the chat who confirmed, but I want to get the ultimate confirmation here. Is we've talked about it before with exotic wagering, and my thing was my big thing with the simulcasting is it works as long as it's not an unfinished plate. And when I mean that, it's not just you got vegetables and here's your plate. Like we got the chicken, we got the vegetables, we got the potato, we got everything. So when simulcast is ready to get released to the people, are we going to have exacta, trifecta? Are we going to have the exotic wagerings and the pools to support them from the start, or is it going to be win, play, show only, and then we'll gradually kick it out?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the current sort of minimum viable right now just has the 3, but I don't think I think we probably need to, at a bare minimum, have trifecta and exacta and pick 4 or pick 6, type of a thing, because it's just like that. Number one, it's more fun, but number 2, that's where a lot more juice can happen. Period. So the problem that we've got that we're trying to solve, and we've got some interesting ways around, is liquidity on these pools, right? So like when we open up a wide open, like at a bar in New York or something, they're able to bet on this random race. How do we make sure that they're not the only people in the pool? And so we're looking at some interesting things there of like um, crowdsourcing liquidity type of things, possibly, or partnering for liquidity. So that's the key part for me. Just to answer that is like if you turn on exactas tomorrow and no one bets exactas, well, then it just sucks, right? It's like there's one person puts in a 2-6 and he loses and he gets his money back, and it's just like that's no fun. There has to be money in there for it to be fun, and so it's just like the game was at the beginning. There's this cold start problem that you have to kind of get over, and I think we've got some pretty interesting and unique ways that we can solve it. But I do agree with you that like we shouldn't limp this thing out. Like we don't want to sit and hold it for a year while we add everything ever, but at the same time, like I don't want it to go out like super thin the way that it feels like wagering kind of has been in the game. It's just kind of like in essence, a prototype. It's not really even real parimutuel because we're stacking the
Yeah.
pools because we don't want it to be real wagering because then that's not legal in certain jurisdictions. It's just like there's all this stuff that you have to kind of get around, and I think that we've got a lot better handle on it when it comes to simulcast. So yeah.
Is there is there a gambling license in the future?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of this, so the way simulcast actually, a lot of it works is that we're opening up more or less an API for the game. Third time's not hosting the pools, so it's we're basically creating a feed stream API of the game that a third party can pick up and operate the book on. So that's the disconnect now of like, so then the entity that sets up the first sets of pools should be a licensed gambling operator to be able to run it in a lot more jurisdictions.
And I guess to we with the liquidity for the pools and whatnot, have there been any discussions in the back to potentially you races that have 20% rake? Obviously, some of that goes here, some of that goes here, some of that goes here. Is there anything give me some of that to put towards the exotic pools, or you know along those lines, basically, instead of just grabbing a mountain of derby and throwing it in, like taking it from already, like you're taking it from the tax essentially, um,
Right.
breeding tax,
Yeah.
wagering, or what have you.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
my hope is that the simulcast, is going to not be Derby. It's going to be USDC or Crown or maybe even Crown, but it'll settle out in the Solana space. So you're not inside of the game because again, it's a separate.
Yeah.
It's feeding off of our feed. You're wagering on our feed, and so yeah, I think that how we supply liquidity over into this crypto land is possible. Yeah, maybe we're donating or something like that, but we're trying to keep the entities fully separate for legality, of course. Um, so yeah, it's going to be an interesting challenge, but I think one will solve.
Okay. Is there a timeline for simulcast to hit the streets?
Uh, I wouldn't commit to one now. I mean, so we're still like looking at the site itself is kind of like up and operational, so you can place wagers on the races that are coming from our API. We have sort of the rudimentary smart contract for a parimutuel program, but a lot of testing still needed. And then really, I mean, the, the actual ability to have liquidity in these pools is going to be the next kind of paramount thing. And then the last step will be Roku operators having their own, account QR code that, you know, that allows them to basically take a cut out of this whole system. That will probably be, a little bit. So I don't think it's like, I don't think it's coming this year, but we might have it testable and in beta and in a local bar here, just to check it out
Uh,
here pretty soon.
Q1,
But
Q2.
Q1, Q2, yeah, I'd feel comfortable in that range. Yeah,
All right.
I'd
We're
love
still
to have it at the Derby.
we're still a
Like, how do
little
we,
bit out.
I always line as many things up with May as I can, so I might try and crunch it to May. Yeah.
Any plans for a? You know, this is one of those things again. I'm gonna draw. Any plans for like a leaderboard slash handicapping contest through the website kind of deal? Like register with whatever 50 crown or whatever, and then that's kind of like the prize pool essentially, or anything like a leaderboard type deal, like they did with the claiming races to like you know
You know,
choose
if
wagering or
it's
incentivize
interesting to
wagering.
say it as a handicapping
Hmm.
contest because we've talked about leaderboards for pick success or profits or whatever, but that always felt really gross. Like, that's putting somebody's private, you know, activity on this leaderboard. Maybe they, but if it was an enrolled thing, if you like elected to participate in a
Hmm.
contest, and then it was like, I don't know what would be the metric, win percentage or total wins or what it would be. But that feels a little better because then it's more like a disclosure thing. People can
To the disclosure part, you can see people's P&L on the website, so like
you
that's
you can, but I don't
I
know if you
understand
can
what you're
see it
saying.
for picks. Yeah. Mhm.
I get that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Let me see if there's
That's
anything.
definitely part of one of the things that we've been trying to work towards, though, is this sort of leaderboard um, style reward, and it's actually twofold. So I don't think we have anything ready to ship, but like, um, it's a key way to add more jurisdictions is if you allow the leaderboard as the challenge, so it's over multiple contests. So like if you go read the law about why does DraftKings and why are FanDuel legal, it's because it's not a single contest. It's basically multiple players, and then it's all about all of the results coming into one. And so we've been looking into that because like that would open up more states and even more countries if it's sort of like, all right, do lots of picks on multiple races, and the winner of today, like daily fantasy, is actually the winner as opposed to it's a pari mutual pool on every single race. Um, so that's an interesting thing that I kind of want to start moving towards as we get. But again, it's been a difficult because it's like that's on the
Yeah,
site itself versus simulcast is external, and does simulcast need to work that way? That's the stuff that we're still kind of looking at. But yeah,
yeah. I know we discussed it before. Like a DFS style would be pretty cool. Like I said, there's already a site out there that does it with IRL, where they basically the price points of the horses are determined by their morning line odds. So obviously, like 2 to 1
yeah,
is going to cost you more to build your lineup, kind of deal. I don't know how that
yeah.
would work through this, but I know we discussed it before on Spaces.
Hmm.
Um,
We have to give the morning line maker a little bit of
A
yeah,
little bit
well,
of a
finally have
boost.
to get some love if we were going to bet. Yeah,
I'm gonna wait till
That
the
old
weekend to
drunk.
really dig into odds
yeah.
again because I know
Remus left us that one.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
behind the scenes with the odds and whatnot. Either people are believers or they're not believers or they don't trust it or why am I the favorite and I'm finishing last? Why am I 14 to 1 and I'm winning this race consistently? It's like there's a lot that goes on behind it, but
So what do I think I heard someone said you were kind of ranting about that. The morning line odds are absolutely meant to be kind of well, ranting, just
I don't
discussing as you
I
would.
don't rant here.
What
Were you
but
berating
like
anybody? Was that part of
I don't
like
get worked up
I
about
don't know.
anything.
Has anyone done any like analytics in real life, like how accurate morning line typically is? Like I know we try to make so real life odds of a favorite is typically like they win what like one out of three times, kind of a roughly in that rangish, maybe even less.
a little bit
But
less?
like I don't know about morning line though. Like I have no idea how accurate.
Yeah.
They're pretty crazy, right? I mean, they're not
I
even
mean,
close.
the
They're,
odds
they're
with
not even
IRL,
they're
it's most of the time IRL when you open a program and you see 50 to 1 on a horse, you can see why it's 50 to 1. Or if you see 2 to 1, you know why it's 2 to 1. But there's more like obviously the what are the numbers we use? We use fleet figures, buyer speeds. Like the
mhm.
Mm,
buyer speeds are a big tell because obviously IRL it takes everything and jams it into that number and it's easier to look at from there. But yeah, like TriStar said, it's either you believe in odds or you have 50 IQ. But I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Like I don't fully believe in odds. Like I'm a degenerate handicapper, IRL with sports, whatever. I don't necessarily believe in odds. I like to look behind the curtain and see what goes on behind it. If you're a 2-1 favorite, why are you 2-1 favorite kind of deal, and then go through it. But yeah,
I mean,
I think the
I've never I've
hard odds
never
real is
been with somebody when they wrote the morning line odds, and I've never done it. But my understanding is that they're not trying to pick the winner. They're trying to pick. They're trying to guess the final odds on the race. So they're just, and oftentimes I was reading an article that the same person who does the morning line odds also will make their own like picks for they'll make their own recommendations, and they aren't the same. They'll set the morning line odds as a favorite, and they'll say no, don't. We're going to take the long shot in this race because that they think the public will be wrong, but they're trying. So they have their opinion and they have their guess of what the public will think. And so I've always often wondered, like, if we go back and give the morning line writer a redux there, like, I would what would we include that we would think that the public in photo finish uses to set their ultimate odds as a parimutuel pool? It's kind of a game theory kind of thing.
Well, just realizing it's 11.
11-1. Yeah,
Doughboy, thank you so much. Of course, let's definitely do it again. Let's do it more often. Always a pleasure, sir. And thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, I definitely missed some stuff, but again, futures. Maybe after the new year we can settle down after the holidays and get back on it. Maybe there's some more updates afterwards. But yeah, I appreciate Paul, Ian. Thank you very much. Thanks for giving me the opportunity for this. But yeah,
nice being with you.
All right, guys. Happy holidays.